Welcome to Medicated Housewife DIY. In today's DIY video, high-end Christmas tree dupe, don't buy it, DIY it. West Elm mini Christmas tree DIY, we are making 4 West Elm Christmas dupes. Beautiful paper Christmas trees and an angel for a lot less than West Elm Prices. Gorgeous on your holiday table and impressive as gifts, you're going to love this high-end Christmas decor. So stick around, let's go make some stuff and jump right into this. To begin with, we're going to be doing our own version of this beautiful West Elm mini Christmas tree display. Now, I went on Google Images and Canva.com, which you can use for free, and downloaded several versions of some basic Christmas tree shapes. I resized them to fit on 8.5 by 11-inch paper landscape, so that's sideways. And I printed them all at about 8 inches tall onto some thick white cardstock that I just had lying around. I want to use them as templates for my mini trees, and I printed a bunch of different styles because, you know, I like having choices. Once printed, I cut out the trees and then I cut them again down the middle. So basically, I have a bunch of different half a tree templates to choose from. I pick out a Christmas tree template from my many choices, and I got a pack of this antique looking cardstock from Amazon. I'll link it in the description box below for you. There are several different colors, but only 8 pieces of each color. So I'm folding each sheet of paper into quarters and then cutting the paper in half. So each piece gives me 2 folded little booklet things to work with. I clipped the template with the straight side on top of the folded part of the paper, and I'm going to cut around my template just to save me the time and effort in having to trace and then cut. Depending on how thick your paper is and how strong your scissors are, that'll determine how many folds of paper you can cut at one time. I really couldn't cut that many of these paper folds at one time. After we cut around the template, you're going to be left with 1 full tree folded in half. I did end up stealing 4 pieces of another similar color paper for a total of 12 pieces of paper, which each of them cut in half gives me 24 tree cutouts. And I will say this, the more paper that you use, the better your tree is going to look. But I only had the paper I had, so I am working with what I got. Using a mixture of water and some folk art antique wax, which I will link for you below, I used a small paintbrush to paint the edges of each tree cutout, just really the edges, and I painted both sides of each of them. For the first part of assembling these trees, we want to glue all the folded pieces together one by one, and I have to be honest, with this first tree, I was playing fast and loose with the gluing. I'm using hot glue, so you can use any kind of glue you want, and the best adhesive would probably be a tape glider, which I don't have, so in the interest of drying time, I used hot glue. Doing my best to use it thinly and sparingly so there weren't a lot of lumps or gaps, but I added glue in some weird parts on this tree, and I'm going to do my best to explain the correct way to do this and not the way I'm doing it. My technique is much better in the trees after this one, so it's going to be a bit of do as I say, not as I do for this first tree. Basically, we wanted to glue a thin line at the bottom of each point on the tree, like I kind of started out doing, but then I started gluing a little less and in different areas. It's kind of a mess, but the end result still works, and the upcoming trees will be done correctly, so you have that to look forward to. So let's just assume I glued all the folded trees together like I just explained, and now we're going to glue these half trees to each other into one thick sort of booklet of trees. To glue them all together, we're going to glue in the opposite spots as the spots that we were gluing in the folded pieces. So these will be glued in a line down the middle of each point, as opposed to the inside folds where they were at the beginning of each point, like the bottom of the point. I hope that that makes sense to you. I'm telling you where you should be gluing, even though you're seeing me skip some of those areas. and just put glue, you know, in a couple as opposed to like all of them. And I promise that this will all make sense when you see the next tree. Once all my pieces are attached together, I place a couple of clips to hold them tightly in place while the glue really sets up. I then attach the two ends of the tree together. And again, I promise this is the last time I'll show you how not to glue. Although I must say, the process ends up working anyway, even though it's glued incorrectly. Using one of those small wood rounds from Dollar Tree, I use more hot glue to firmly attach the tree to its base. Lastly, I use some Spanish moss, also from Dollar Tree, to camouflage some of those really thick clumps of hot glue that are on the base and along the rim of the tree trunk. And this is how the first of my high-end Christmas tree dupes turned out. Now I know I didn't attach this tree the actual proper way, as you'll see later, but I think this tree is seriously rustically charming. The painted cardstock looks very wood-like, and the whole thing has a really natural kind of earthy appeal. Not an identical dupe, but definitely inspired by those West Elm mini paper trees. Okay, moving on to Christmas tree dupe number 2. I am using this template that's pretty much 3 triangles and a rectangle formed into a tree shape, easy peasy. Got this heavyweight green cardstock at Amazon, and I will link it for you below. And again, I cut my cardstock in half and then folded it in half again. I only had 10 pieces of this green paper, and I highly recommend you use more than that, as the more paper you use, the better looking and fuller your tree will be. But I had 10 pieces, which made 20 full tree cutouts rather, or 40 half trees. I clipped the template to the folded side of the cardstock and cut around the template, just like we did in tree number 1. After all of the tree shapes are cut, it is time to glue all our folded tree halves together, and this time we're doing it correctly. I am showing you the 3 spots to put the line of glue with my finger, which I do 1 line at a time, with a little dot of glue at the tippy top of the tree. Now let's show that again, shall we? Since it is the right way, we dot the glue at the top, followed by 3 lines extending to the 3 tips at the side of the tree. Okay, one last time, from the bottom up to the top. With all my folded trees glued, it is time to attach them to one another, and I used a pencil to remind myself where to glue all of these. First a line of glue at the tree trunk, then another in the middle of the tree point, and another in the middle of the second point, and then in the middle of the third tree point. We are gluing these kind of in the opposite space of where we glued the folded sides together. This is how we're going to create that honeycomb effect when the tree is stretched out. I found the best way to keep the pile of tree pieces in line as we attach each one is to do 1 line of glue, then line up and attach the next tree piece, and then another line of glue, and then the next 2 lines of glue. This way, your tree pieces will stay somewhat straight and in line. I did this until all of the pieces were attached to each other like a book. Once the tree was fully glued together, I decided to add a star and a bead to the top. I used Folk Art Treasure Gold paint, which I will link for you below, as well as the wood beads and the small wood stars that I used. I used a painted wood skewer and hot glue to attach the star to the bead. Now, I don't know what happened to the footage of me gluing the end of this tree to the other, but I will say that it's glued together in the same way that all the folded trees were glued together, with a line of glue at the trunk and in the middle of the 3 points of the tree. And this was very hard to stretch around to glue it because I only used 10 pieces of paper. If I had 20 pieces of paper and used twice as many folded trees, it would have stretched much easier. So as a result, this green tree has a definite good side and a definite bad side, but that's okay. Perfection is not necessary in crafting. It still looks good from the front. Am I right? I mounted it on a wood round from Dollar Tree and glued the bead and the star to the top. And this is how my second high-end West Elm Christmas tree dupe turned out. This tree is definitely more like our inspiration photo than the first tree. I love the color, and I only wish I had more of that green cardstock, so I could have made the tree fuller and less sparse in the back, which I'm not showing you because, like my grandma always used to say, what's behind me is not my problem. So we're going with that. It's a very festive tree and would fit right in with your holiday decor. DIY number 3 is the West Elm Christmas Angel display, which is our DIY dupe inspiration. This time I'm using this ivory color thick resume paper, which I have a lot in my stash. I used a tall, thin triangle with a circle at the top for my template, which I've already cut in half at the middle. And we're using the paper the portrait way, so our angel is going to be about 10 inches tall, and we are folding our paper the tall way, not the long way. So we're getting one angel cut out from each folded piece of paper. I used 40 pieces of paper, so I had 40 full angels or 80 half angels. Clipping the angel template to the folded side of my paper, since this paper is thin, I was able to cut out the template on 4 or 5 pieces of paper at a time, which definitely saved a lot of time. Since the angel's pretty tall, I decided the easiest way to keep track of where to glue was to mark up this blank template, drawing lines an inch apart up and down the length of the template. Every other line was dotted. The solid lines are marked A and the dotted lines are marked B. A lines represent the glue line to glue my folded angels together, and B lines represent where the glue lines go to glue the folded angels to each other like a book. I open the folded angel and hold it against the template, and I used a pencil to make small marks on the inside of the angel where my glue line would go. Then I put the line of glue down and I sealed the folded angel closed. I repeated that exact procedure 40 times for all 40 of my folded angels. Once the 40 folded angels are glued, I line one up with the template and started gluing along those B glue lines. And I line up the next angel on top, glue one line down, attach the angel, and then glue the rest of the lines. That way my pile of angels will stay straight and even, and hopefully that makes sense to you. I do mark with a pencil where the lines should be before I glue them so that I don't have to try to line up the angel with the template while I'm trying to glue. You say that you're from out of town. I'm hoping that you Once all 40 angels are glued together like a book, I needed to make the wings, and I take 2 more pieces of paper, cut them in half in the middle so that I have 4 pieces. I fold one piece in half and then fold it again and then fold it again and then again. And once I unfold that paper, I refold it, but accordion style. So I flip it over, fold it, flip it over, flip it over like an accordion. I accordion fold all 4 pieces of paper. I use some hot glue and attach 2 pieces of the accordion folds together to make one longer piece. And then I repeat that on the other 2 smaller accordion folded pieces. I'm left with 2 long accordion folded pieces of paper, and those will be our wings. I take one end of one of the wings and I push the folds together, like squeeze them together and fold them over at the end. Then I use some hot glue to secure that side of the wing, keeping it squeezed together. I repeat that for the other wing. Then it's time to assemble the angel. I use some clips to help me hold it together while I'm gluing it, and I use the same B glue lines that we used when we were attaching all of those folded angels to each other. So we want to put our glue in the same place, and then we want to attach one end of our angel to the other, and we hold it in place with clips just until the glue has fully set. I want to add some gold to the edges of my angel, so I'm using some Folk Art Treasure Gold and a dry, small, little rough brush, and I lightly paint the edges of the entire angel, top to bottom, including the head. I also paint the edges and the tips of the accordion folds on both of my angel wings. To attach these wings to my angel, which is no easy feat, my friends, but we're going to glue the little folded over tab that we created to the area right below the angel's head, which I guess is kind of the neck. You may need a good amount of hot glue to make that stick, and then we're going to glue the lower length of that wing right up against the angel's body, which will keep the wing nice and stretched out the way a wing should be. And we're going to repeat that same procedure for the other wing. Now, using this much glue to really secure the wings to the body makes for a pretty heavy glued mess where the wing is attached. So off camera, I used some paper raffia that I had on hand, and I simply wrapped it around the neck of the angel over the wings. This does two things. It helps secure the wings in place by holding them there. Plus, it camouflages the hot glue mess that we've created, and it looks cute too. And this is how my West Elm Christmas Angel dupe turned out. Oh my gosh, I love this angel. It came out so similar to my inspiration piece, and it's adorable. Just take my word for it, it's adorable. I made this little halo-like crown for it out of a piece of Dollar Tree wired garland, which is totally removable. I like it with the halo and without. This angel is perfect for your holiday table and really anywhere for your Christmas decor. For the fourth and final DIY Christmas tree dupe, I used this 8.5 by 11 inch craft paper sheets that I got on Amazon. I will link them below, but you could easily substitute regular craft paper cut into sheets for that as well. It's pretty thin. It reminds me of the scrap paper they used to give you in like kindergarten or something like that. And I folded it in quarters, cut each piece in half like we did in trees 1 and 2. And I'm using this curvy kind of rounded template from my vast collection of tree templates. And I am going to be cutting 2 full trees from each piece of paper. Because this paper is so thin, I'm able to cut out the template on several pieces of folded paper at once. So this cutting for this one goes pretty quickly, and I clip the template to the stack of folded paper and simply cut around it as we've done for all of these projects. I used 15 pieces of the paper total to cut out 30 trees, or 60 half trees if you want to look at it that way. You can use more than this, more than 15 pieces of paper, but I would not recommend using any less. With all my trees cut out, we're going to begin gluing the folded trees together. And since we've got this gluing thing down by this point, we put that line of glue along the bottom of each curved part of the tree and glue the folded piece to itself. I do that on all 30 folded trees. Once the folded trees are all glued, then it's time to glue them on top of each other like a book. So our glue lines for this are going in between the first set of glue lines, which means our glue lines go right across the middle of each curved part of the tree. I still like to do one glue line at a time to better keep each of those trees in a straight line as I glue them on top of each other, and hopefully that makes sense to you. At the end, they are all glued together like one book. I then glue one end to the other to form our 3D tree, and we still use the same glue lines running across the middle of each curved part of the tree. I glued the trunk of the tree onto a mini wood trunk from Dollar Tree and glued a natural color wood star to the very top of my tree. I love the simplicity of how this tree turned out. Again, not an exact dupe, but very rustically charming, in my opinion anyway. And these are my 4 high-end West Elm Christmas tree and angel dupes. I love these all together. My favorite is definitely the angel. I think it's stunning, but the green tree is a standout too. These will be on my holiday table as part of the centerpiece for sure. Just rustic and natural and just plain pretty, but I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments if you have a favorite and why. As always, I love to hear from you. I want to take a minute to let you know how much I value all of your support, and I'm incredibly thankful for all of you. Thanks so much for watching this Medicated Housewife DIY, and remember, I'm the Medicated Housewife, and crafting is my medication.